Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished. The
Right.
Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They don't generate any money. And I don't see where she is going from here. And of course, Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain.
Imagine waking up, grabbing your phone, and realizing the royal family saga just shifted into something that feels ripped straight from a binge-worthy drama series. Only this time, the writers aren't Hollywood producers. They're Tom Bower, one of Britain's most relentless royal biographers, and Paul Burrell, the former butler to Princess Diana, who claims he understands how the palace truly operates behind closed doors. When those two voices land on the same side of a conversation about Meghan Markle, people pause mid-scroll. Not because palace commentary is rare, but because alignment between figures like these isn't. Bower has built a reputation for blunt reporting and deep archival digging. Burrell, shaped by years inside royal households, speaks with the authority of proximity. When one raises questions, it draws attention. When both gesture in the same direction, curiosity intensifies. And this time the conversation isn't about balcony appearances, etiquette, or ceremonial rules. It's about ambition, influence, and whether the next chapter of Meghan's life extends far beyond celebrity culture. The speculation now drifting through media panels and political chatter circles isn't focused on palace corridors. It points toward California networks, philanthropic power circles, wealthy donors, and conversations that operate far beyond entertainment headlines. At the center of it all stands Prince Harry, watching a spotlight shift in ways few predicted. What began as a royal love story has crossed into territory where media influence, public advocacy, and political proximity intersect. That crossover alone has captured attention. Palace veterans rarely speak in unison. When they do, observers start asking why. On one side is Tom Bower, a man known for examining narratives others leave untouched. He suggests Meghan is not simply living a quiet California life. According to his interpretation, her moves appear deliberate, strategic, and long-term, not loud, not impulsive, but calculated. Then Paul Burrell adds his perspective. Having lived within the royal system, he frames Meghan's trajectory as extending beyond Hollywood and lifestyle branding. He has hinted at connections to influential donor networks and the possibility of future involvement in public policy or political advocacy. Not confirmation, but direction. Two observers, different backgrounds, similar trajectory. That convergence alone fuels discussion. If there truly is a broader vision unfolding, what might that mean for Prince Harry? He stepped away from royal duty, from the institutional framework that shaped his life. Is he a partner in what comes next, or a witness to its evolution? Those are the uncomfortable questions now circulating. Agreement isn't required, speculation is inevitable, but the conversation itself signals something larger. The narrative around Meghan Markle may be expanding beyond celebrity identity into arenas where influence is measured differently. And whether that evolution is intentional or simply the result of opportunity, it is reshaping how this story is being watched, not just in London, not just in Hollywood, but far beyond both.
When Tom Bower speaks, people pay attention, not because he softens his words, but because he rarely does. In recent commentary, he used language that immediately triggered headlines and debate. His phrasing was sharp, provocative, and unmistakably designed to provoke discussion. But beyond the shock value of strong wording lies a more revealing question. What interpretation is he actually presenting? Bower portrays Meghan Markle not as impulsive or reactive, but as deliberate. In his view, she operates with patience, observing, waiting, and moving when the timing works in her favor. Silence, he suggests, is not absence, it is leverage, a way of holding position until the moment arrives when a shift can no longer be ignored. It's the difference between reacting to the board and quietly reshaping it. From that perspective, the quieter phase of her public presence is not retreat, but recalibration. Bower has hinted that the next chapter may extend beyond entertainment deals or media projects. He has speculated about the potential for influence in arenas where communication, public presence, and advocacy intersect with policy discussions and civic leadership. That doesn't confirm a political move, it suggests a trajectory. Consider the skill set: confident public speaking, global name recognition, philanthropic engagement, and the ability to command attention in polarized spaces. Those qualities function well beyond red carpets and press junkets. So, is this quieter period simply transition, preparation, or just a natural evolution of public life after leaving a formal royal role? Bower leaves gaps rather than blueprints. The implication is what fuels conversation.
If Meghan ever stepped onto a larger civic or advocacy stage, reactions would likely be divided. Some would see a modern public voice leveraging influence for social impact. Others would revisit past controversies and question credibility. That tension sits at the center of the speculation. Not what she might do, but how the public would respond. If Bauer's remarks strike like thunder, Paul Burrell's perspective arrives more like a slow, persistent ticking clock. Rather than focusing on strategy or influence, he has spoken about the internal dynamics of Prince Harry and Meghan's partnership. Burrell argues that cultural and structural differences between their backgrounds are not merely charming contrasts, they represent fundamentally different life frameworks. Harry was raised within rigid royal protocol, defined by duty, hierarchy, and institutional tradition. He now lives in an environment driven by branding, media cycles, and high-speed networking culture. Meghan, by contrast, built her career navigating cameras, messaging, and influence ecosystems. She is comfortable within entertainment, philanthropic, and technology-driven circles, where visibility and positioning shape outcomes. Burrell suggests that adaptation to such different environments can create pressure, not necessarily conflict, but adjustment. When one partner moves confidently within a new ecosystem, while the other is still redefining purpose outside long-standing structure, questions naturally emerge. Where does identity settle? What replaces institutional duty? How does purpose evolve beyond the role one was born into? Burrell has also suggested that Meghan moves comfortably within global philanthropic and investor networks, not as casual social interaction, but as strategic relationship building. Whether one agrees or disagrees with these interpretations, the larger narrative they feed is unmistakable. This is no longer just a royal story. It is a story about transition, identity, influence, and the complex terrain that follows when two people step away from an institution and begin defining life on their own terms. And that evolution is still unfolding. Paul Burrell goes even further in his interpretation, suggesting that Prince Harry alone would not be the driving force behind entry into ultra-wealth influence circles. It's a sharp observation, and one that raises uncomfortable but realistic questions about partnership dynamics when two lives evolve in dramatically different directions. When one partner's ambitions expand into vast, high-level arenas, while the other is still redefining identity and purpose, tension doesn't automatically appear, but adjustment becomes inevitable. Do differing trajectories strengthen a partnership through complementary roles, or can diverging momentum gradually create emotional distance? Burrell suggests that if such differences ever widened, the impact wouldn't remain private. The public image they have worked carefully to build could be affected as well. That's where speculation intensifies. He argues Meghan's presence in elite environments isn't merely symbolic. In his view, she is positioning herself within networks of extraordinary wealth and influence, circles that extend far beyond entertainment or celebrity culture. That's not casual mingling, it's proximity to decision-makers. Picture Montecito dinner gatherings, polished glassware, quiet conversations, understated introductions that appear social on the surface but carry weight in private. According to Burrell's interpretation, these environments function as relationship ecosystems, spaces where introductions evolve into partnerships, collaborations, and long-term influence. Every panel appearance, every philanthropic forum, every invitation to closed-door events can function as connective tissue in a larger network. In that reading, the process isn't networking for visibility, it's network building for longevity. Tom Bauer's commentary aligns with that perception. He has suggested that Meghan's public appearances often appear structured rather than spontaneous. Appearances at global forums, charity summits, media events, and policy-adjacent discussions. To some observers, that pattern suggests groundwork for broader influence rather than lifestyle branding alone. From this perspective, the conversation shifts. It becomes less about celebrity and more about access, less about headlines and more about positioning. Burrell raises a provocative question. Is she cultivating alliances that extend beyond media and philanthropy into strategic partnerships, relationships that provide funding pathways, institutional access, and long-term backing? This is not speculation about romance or social status. It is speculation about power ecosystems.
And if that long-term positioning is real, it raises another question. Where does that leave Prince Harry? He stepped away from royal duty to build a new life, defined by independence and purpose. Yet Silicon Valley investors, global philanthropists, and political donors operate in spheres shaped by financial scale, policy influence, and institutional reach. This conversation isn't simply about wealth. It's about proximity to influence. It's about credibility in spaces that shape global narratives, philanthropic priorities, and even public policy discussions. Viewed through that lens, the storyline shifts from duchess to dealmaker,
from royal headlines to strategic influence. Then comes Burrell's most cinematic speculation, the possibility that Meghan Markle could one day pursue public office, even a role such as Governor of California. At first glance, it sounds dramatic, but history complicates dismissal. Ronald Reagan transitioned from Hollywood actor to California governor and eventually president. Arnold Schwarzenegger moved from blockbuster films to Sacramento's highest office. California has long blurred the boundary between celebrity and political leadership. So the question becomes less shocking. Could a globally recognized public figure with advocacy experience, media fluency, and philanthropic credentials eventually consider civic leadership? Burrell claims that within certain donor and advocacy circles, her name has surfaced not as a present candidate, but as a future possibility, a long-term evolution rather than an immediate move. That is not an announcement, it is positioning. Imagine a decade from now, no royal balcony, no ceremonial titles, only a podium, a campaign platform, and a statewide audience. The same public presence once seen at a royal wedding, now directed toward policy, social priorities, and governance. Whether that future ever materializes is uncertain, but the question itself reveals how dramatically the narrative has expanded, and that expansion is what keeps observers watching closely. Because if influence is evolving, the real question isn't what comes next, it's who defines it. So, where would Prince Harry fit if that future ever unfolded? Would he become a supportive partner working quietly behind the scenes, an advisor offering perspective shaped by diplomacy, service, and global humanitarian work? Or would he gradually step out of the spotlight, choosing a more private role while Meghan occupies increasingly visible platforms? That question alone reframes the past few years. The interviews, the streaming deals, the carefully timed appearances, were they simply media ventures or stepping stones towards something larger? That's the theory both Paul Burrell and Tom Bauer continue to circle. Not fairy tales, not palace theatrics, but strategy. If Meghan ever envisioned a path toward public office, whether local, statewide, or policy-focused, then every speech, every philanthropic initiative, every forum appearance takes on a different dimension. Advocacy becomes groundwork, visibility becomes credibility, narrative becomes infrastructure. But that path would also invite a collision of histories. American politics is unforgiving terrain. Campaigns excavate the past, headlines resurface, narratives are reframed by opponents and amplified by media cycles. The question becomes unavoidable. Could someone carrying years of royal controversy translate global recognition into electoral trust? Burrell insists the possibility is not fantasy, only distant, and the mere suggestion transforms California politics into something resembling a royal drama reborn on American soil. Yet both men return to a more personal dimension. If Meghan's ambitions expand, Prince Harry may no longer sit at the center of the narrative. Consider his trajectory. He left the only institutional structure he had ever known, monarchy, military service, inherited duty, and crossed an ocean to construct a new identity. For years, he stood publicly beside Meghan, defending her, reshaping his role, and supporting a shared vision. But Bauer suggests that reality may be shifting. His interpretation implies Harry may not be central to Meghan's long-term blueprint. Burrell frames it more poignantly. He describes Harry as existing in a form of transition, living comfortably in Montecito, yet still confronting a fundamental question: where do I fit now? While Meghan attends summits, develops ventures, and connects with high-level networks, Harry appears to occupy a space between worlds, no longer a working royal, not fully defined within America's influence landscape. Burrell highlights a subtle linguistic detail often cited in profiles and interviews. Harry has referred to their California residence as home, while Meghan has described it as HQ. Whether anecdotal or symbolic, that contrast suggests differing emotional anchors. For him, stability and family. For her, operations and expansion. If Meghan is positioning herself within broader influence structures, where does that leave Harry? As a loyal partner offering counsel behind the curtain, or as someone who may one day feel he exchanged one spotlight only to stand adjacent to another? This is not a prediction. It is a question of direction, and questions keep audiences watching. Behind glossy magazine covers and curated imagery, both Bauer and Burrell also point to practical realities: financial independence. The anticipated tidal wave of streaming wealth did not unfold exactly as early headlines suggested. The Spotify partnership ended earlier than expected. Netflix projects generated attention, though not a continuous stream of blockbuster hits. That does not signal failure, but it reflects the difference between expectation and outcome. Leaving royal financial structures means building sustainability independently. Security, staffing, travel, and operational costs in California are substantial. Burrell suggests these realities may help explain why separation rumors remain speculative rather than credible. A split would complicate business structures, branding, influence networks, and long-term positioning. Instead, he frames their partnership as strategic alignment, two individuals navigating independence while building influence on their own terms. And there is evidence of traction. Meghan's lifestyle brand launch demonstrated immediate consumer demand, with products selling out rapidly and generating widespread attention. Whether interpreted as commercial success, branding strength, or market curiosity, the response signaled that her influence remains potent. Which brings the story back to its central tension. Is this reinvention still unfolding or only beginning? Because in an era where identity, influence, and power are constantly evolving, the most compelling narratives are not about where someone started, they're about where they are going. Whether critics applaud or roll their eyes, the demand was instant. That kind of response sends a loud message. Attention still follows her. Love her or question her, she generates curiosity. And in business, curiosity converts into revenue. Companies see it, investors notice it, the market responds. Suddenly, the bigger picture becomes layered. Political speculation, marriage dynamics, financial pressure, brand momentum. This isn't a royal fairy tale anymore. It's strategy, reputation, money, and influence all tangled together. And whether this story ends in public office, continued media power, or something nobody expects, one truth stands firm. People are still watching every move. But can merchandise launches and streaming deals alone sustain a lifestyle this massive? That's the million-dollar, maybe billion-dollar question. Are we watching the rise of a lasting empire, or just another wave of short-term momentum dressed up as long-term success?
For Prince Harry, a man who once wore military medals as symbols of service, shifting into branding meetings and marketing strategy must feel like stepping onto a completely different battlefield. Uniform to business casual, ceremony to sponsorships, duty to deal-making. Yet that financial engine may be the very force keeping everything aligned, even as deeper tensions quietly simmer. Now here's where Tom Bower and Paul Burrell deliver their sharpest assessments. Bower argues the Sussexes have done more in 5 years to damage the royal institution than critics have in decades, a claim as explosive as it is controversial. From his perspective, interviews, documentaries, and memoir revelations weren't reform, they were confrontation. Burrell pushes the speculation even further. He suggests Harry may not have been the final destination in Meghan's journey, but a gateway, a connection that opened doors, accelerated recognition, and unlocked influence in America. That is his interpretation, not established fact. Still, it fuels debate. If Meghan's ambitions continue expanding into elite networks, philanthropy power circles, or even public leadership, where does that leave Harry? A supportive partner? A steady presence behind the scenes? Or someone gradually becoming secondary in a story that once revolved around him? Framed this way, the narrative stops looking like a simple fairy tale and starts resembling a chessboard, moves calculated, risks measured, outcomes uncertain. But here's the human question that refuses to disappear. What about the vows, the public devotion, the moments that felt undeniably real? Can ambition and authenticity coexist, or do they inevitably collide? The ending isn't written yet. Every new report, every fresh rumor raises the stakes. And now, with new commentary and legal chatter emerging in royal media circles, the pressure continues to build. One thing is certain, this story isn't fading, it's evolving. If you want to stay ahead of every twist, every claim, and every behind-the-scenes development, make sure you subscribe, like the video, and drop your thoughts below. And don't miss the next deep dive, because the next chapter could change everything.